Hotep world, welcome back to Matthew Daniels TV. I am your host, Matthew Daniels, the illustrious scribe, author, writer, and the bookworm. But I'm not just a bookworm world, I am the real bookworm. Make sure you get it right. I'm doing the book game like it'll probably never be done again, and I'm doing the book game like it ain't never been done before. Thank you for tuning in. Y'all see the title. Today we're going to be talking about the Central African origin of Hoodoo, 10,000-year-old religion with unique holy book never seen before. Again, we're going to be talking about the Central African origin of Hoodoo, the 10,000-year-old religion with unique holy book never seen before. Now, the first thing that I want to say while I get everything set up and check my sound, I apologize about yesterday for anyone that was watching the live. I began this video yesterday and I was going through it, but I received a very disturbing phone call. One of my family members were in need of my immediate assistance, and you guys know how it go. Family comes first, right? Family comes before making a YouTube video. So unfortunately, I had to abruptly stop the live so that I could take care of my responsibilities to my family. So I apologize to anybody that was watching the live when it got cut off. But I'm back now, and we're going to finish this thing. We're going to take a look at it. All right. El Bigfoot, Grand Rise in the YouTube family. I ain't forgot about you, family. Grand Rise in the YouTube. Thank you for tapping in. Thank you for tapping in. Now I've been talking about this hoodoo thing for a while now. And those of you who have been following the channel, you have some information about it. Individuals who are new to the channel, real quick, hit that like button when you come in the building. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you can be notified when I go live, and you can be notified when I drop new content. With that being said, for the individuals who are new to the channel, Hoodoo, what is Hoodoo? Hoodoo is the religion or the spiritual system that our ancestors created on the slave plantations in the South, in the southern portion of the United States. Now, I don't teach hoodoo in a sense of I'm not trying to convert anybody from whatever spiritual tradition or religion that they practice. I'm teaching it from a historical perspective. And so what hoodoo is a mixture between the African religion and the African spiritual traditions that our ancestors brought over from Africa with them when they were enslaved on these shores, and it's mixed with various Abrahamic faiths, aspects of Christianity, aspects of Islam, and to a lesser degree, some aspects of Judaism. Our ancestors took the religion and the spiritual traditions that they knew in Africa, and they fused it with things like Christianity and Islam on these shores, predominantly Christianity, because that's what they were allowed to profess. So a lot of times when we look back into the past, and we see that our ancestors were quote unquote Christians on the slave plantations, and they went to church. And shortly after the end of the Civil War, when the majority of our ancestors gained their freedom, when they were calling themselves Christians, a lot of them, they were not Christians how we are Christians today. They were Christians in name. And yes, they went to church. Yes, they had preachers. Yes, they read the Bible. Yes, they were parts of various denominations. But underneath their Christianity was African spirituality. And that is how they expressed their faith, through their African spirituality, and they fused the two. But what an individual would have to ask is, if hoodoo has elements of African spirituality and African religion in it, what did that African spirituality and that African religion look like on the continent of Africa, and exactly how was it converted over into the system that we know as Hoodoo. And what are some of the similarities if you've never done the actual study? So what we're going to do today, we're going to be looking at the Central African nation of the Congo and some of the surrounding countries of the Congo, because the Congo was a major empire when the Portuguese showed up, and the Congo ruled a lot of neighboring provinces or neighboring countries or neighboring lands surrounding it. And we know that the majority of our ancestors came from West and Central Africa. So the Congo is a major Central African empire. So what we're going to do, we're going to look into the history of the Congo, and I'm going to show you guys what the religion looked like in the Congo prior to the Europeans showing up. And I'm going to show you how that mirrors what we're seeing as Hoodoo, so you can see it with your own eyes. Now, how I'm going to do that, I'm going to be referring to a book called A Report of the Kingdom of Congo and of the surrounding countries. Now, this book was written by an Italian man named Filippo Pigafetti. I may be pronouncing his name wrong. And he wrote this book based off of the writings of a Portuguese individual named Duarte Lopez. We all understand there was a time in history when various European powers began to explore the quote-unquote sub-Saharan portions of Africa. Okay, as opposed to the Europeans only interacting with Northern Africa, they traveled around to the west side of Africa, and they began to travel into Central Africa, and they began to encounter our ancestors. A lot of this took place after the Moors were expelled from Spain in the 1400s, and a lot of it coincides when Europeans began traversing across the Atlantic Ocean to the New World, to the Americas. Now, the Portuguese are the European nation who encountered the Congo first. And what they did was they sent out Portuguese quote-unquote explorers and Portuguese missionaries, and they traveled to the Congo, and they lived with our ancestors in the Congo for multiple years, learned what they could learn, built systems of trade, and immediately began trying to convert our ancestors to Christianity. And they tried to convert them, or not tried, they succeeded, convert them to the Catholic version of Christianity, which is why if you look up the Congo today, the Democratic Republic of Congo, they are predominantly Catholic. Why are they predominantly Catholic? Because of the events that are recorded in this book. The Portuguese made them Catholic. So the first place I want to start, I want to give you guys a little background on this book. Then I'm going to explain to you some of the history which makes this book relevant. Then we're going to look into the book, and we're going to see what these Portuguese encountered when they made it to the Congo. So online, a brief description of this book, it says, between 1578 and 1589, the Portuguese merchant Duarte Lopez traveled to Central Africa on the orders of Philip II of Spain to serve as ambassador to the powerful Central African Kingdom of Congo. Portugal had first made contact with the kingdom in the 1480s, developing a trading relationship in luxury goods, including ivory and precious metals, and later in the enslavement of Congo and neighboring people. Remember, the Moors were expelled in around 1491. And then around 1492 is when, quote unquote, Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue. So this is that time period of European exploration and European powers and nations trying to reassert themselves as powers and around the globe. Look what they say. This relationship between the Portuguese and the Congolese also involved the regular kidnapping of Congo nobles in return for Portuguese troops and their transport back to Portugal. It's a running joke that you will see online where individuals will say, "We was kings. We was kings." Now, that's a racist thing that individuals say, because a lot of African Americans, we like to profess that we were kings and queens in Africa. Now, we all understand that everybody wasn't a king and queen. No one is saying that. How monarchy governments are ran, there are kings and queens who rule over the majority of the people. But there are also royal families and royal bloodlines. Everybody that is a part of the royal bloodline is not in line to be king. And there are nobles. Nobles and high-born families isn't a European concept. We had this in Africa as well. Brooklyn Zoo, hotel family, good to see you, fam. Thanks for tapping in. Much love, brother. Now, nobles and high-born families is not a European concept. This was all over the world for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And so what you have to understand is not only in the Congo, but in various areas where our ancestors were taken from to be enslaved in the Americas, they really did take kings and queens. They really took members of the royal family, and they took nobles and high-born individuals. So some of us actually descend from royalty, royal bloodlines, noble families, and high-born families. That's just the truth. Not everybody, but some. Anyway, by 1483, the king Mwina Congo, or Nzinga a Nkuwu, 1470 to 1509, converted to Christianity and traveled to Portugal to learn the religion, adopting the Christian name João in honor of the Portuguese king João II. João is like John if you were speaking English. So what happened was, remember, in around the 1480s, around 1491, etc., the Portuguese came to the Congo. One of the first things that they did, they started trying to map out the land, learn how the people operated, and they tried to convert them to Christianity. Wherever the Christians went on planet Earth, they always tried to convert the population. Okay, and they coerced individuals into converting by means of trade, offering better, more money, more gifts, more ability to trade with this Portuguese nation if you would be converted. So there was a king in the Congo in around 1483 who converted to Christianity, the Catholic version of Christianity. And it is said in this book that one of the reasons why he did this is because his uncle, who was a high-born individual who was ruling over one of the provinces of the Congo, he converted to Christianity first, and he convinced the king to convert to Christianity. Look what they say. Christianity, in the form of Roman Catholicism, soon spread across the kingdom, encouraged in particular by João I's successor, Alfonso I. Now, Alfonso I was the son of the first king of Congo to convert to Christianity. Now, what happened was the king converted to Christianity not because he believed that Jesus was his Lord and Savior. He did it for means of trade, and he did it as a political tool. He used it as a political instrument, converting to the religion. But on his deathbed, when he became sick and he realized that he was finna die, and in the later portion of his life, he regretted converting to Christianity, and he regretted making some of his subjects convert to Christianity. So he decided that he was going to return back to the ancestral ways. Now, his wife had fully embraced Catholicism, the queen, and his son, who is called Alfonso I, he fully embraced Catholicism. And man, now this dude loved Jesus in his heart. So when the king was about to die, on his deathbed, he converted back to his ancestral religion. Now, his wife, the queen, fully embracing Catholicism and knowing that her son Alfonso fully embraced Catholicism, she knew that if word got out that the king had renounced Catholicism, then her son would not become the next king, but her son's brother, an individual named Pongo, who would become king. Why? Because Pongo never embraced Catholicism at all. He maintained his belief in the traditional African religion of the Congo his entire life. So when the king was on his deathbed, they told no one at first that he denounced Christianity. And so when he died, the queen ordered his subjects not to tell anybody that he died. And she sent word for her son Alfonso to be brought back from the neighboring provinces where he was working as a warrior, leading the armies, going on military campaigns. She ordered that he come back to the kingdom so that he could be crowned as king before anybody knew what was going on. It's a tale as old as time. The mother wanted her son to be the king instead of this son of another woman, Pongo, becoming the king. Although they both were the sons of the king, they had different mothers. So she brought her son Alfonso back to the Congo, or to the palace, rather. She had him installed as the king. And then after that, they told everybody that the king was dead. When Pongo realized what had happened, he got his troops, his armies that was loyal to him. He made a march on the palace and he did battle with his brother Alfonso for the actual throne. He said that he should be the king. And so these two brothers engaged in a fierce civil war in the Congo for the throne of the empire. Now, if Pongo would have won, the Congo would have reverted back to the traditional religion and history would be quite different. Unfortunately, Alfonso won the war and Catholicism embedded itself deeper into the Congo until now. If you look into the Congo, all you will see is churches, you will see priests, you will see them paying homage to the Pope, and they are Catholics. So that's how Catholicism came to the Congo. Now, what you're seeing on your screen right here, that is a painting, a drawing someone did of Alfonso. That's the guy that's responsible for Catholicism taking hold in that region. Now, this is where we're going to start off our in-depth look into the book. And the first thing that I want to talk about before we get into the specifics of the religion, I want to tell you why I'm saying it's a 10,000-year-old religion with holy writings that were destroyed by the Portuguese. See, they would have us believe that none of our ancestors in Africa could write. They couldn't write until the Muslims came and taught them how to write in Arabic, and they couldn't write until the Europeans came and taught them how to write in whatever European script that they were writing in. And they want us to believe that we had no books, we had no religious texts, we had none of that until outsiders came. But that's a lie. And even when you look into the Portuguese account of coming into the Congo and converting the Congo to Christianity, they confess that our ancestors had holy writings of their own. Watch what it says in the book. After these events, the events that I just described to you, the civil war where Alfonso took over, after these events, the king sent the ambassador of the king of Portugal, who had been detained till now at the court by these disturbances, the civil war, and with him another ambassador of his named Don Rodrigo, and also some of his own, and this ambassador's relations to Portugal, that they might learn the Christian doctrine and also the language, and give an account to the king of the past events. So as soon as Alfonso took hold, he got the ambassador of the king of Portugal, who was hiding out because he didn't want Pongo to kill him, and he got some of his own people, some Congolese individuals, and some of the Portuguese who had camped out in the Congo and who were living there, and he sent them back to Portugal so that they could be indoctrinated into the Christian faith. He wanted to learn more about Catholicism, more about Christianity, more about Jesus and the Holy Mary, so that they could come back, bring that knowledge back, and instruct his people in this new religion. That's what they're talking about. So look what it says. Besides this, he assembled the governors from different provinces at a place arranged for them to meet, and told them publicly that whoever possessed idols or anything else contrary to the Christian religion must give them up to the deputies appointed to receive them, and that all who kept them back would be burnt and receive no pardon. So immediately he began to try to stamp out the old time religion. Now, a big part of this is because he fully embraced Catholicism and Christianity in his heart. But another big part of this was, remember, Pongo represented the old religion. And so the individuals that represented the old religion and followed the old religion were seen by him as enemies. There was just a big major civil war, and a big part of this civil war for the throne dealt with religion. That's what they were fighting about, part of what they were fighting about. So he wanted to stamp out all of that in an effort to also stamp out those who had supported his brother in the rebellion. So the new king, he made an edict that anybody that possessed any idols or anything contrary to Christianity and Catholicism, they must bring it all to a certain place to be burned. So this Congolese king, this black king on his own, and he really did this. We know this guy's real. We have letters of his. He wasn't forced into this. He just was a convert. Destroyed the things pertaining to the Congolese religion. Now look at what the Portuguese says was destroyed. Check this out. This threat being at once put into execution in less than a month, were brought to the court all the idols, sorcery books, and magic writings which had been worshipped as gods. Pause. Wait a minute. Stop right there. So you mean to tell me in the Congo, now they had sorcery books and magic writings? Now this is being spoken of through the lens of a Christian. So yes, they're going to talk about it in somewhat disrespectful terms. It's sorcery books and magic writings. But remember, these books, these writings are in relation to the original religion of the people in the Congo. That's what he's trying to burn, everything that's contrary to the Christian religion. So prior to Christianity coming to the Congo, he's not talking about burning a Bible, right? He's not talking about burning the Quran. He's not talking about burning the Torah. They say to bring the idols, the sorcery books, and the magic writings, which have been worshipped as gods. That's what they're talking about. So there is evidence in the Portuguese own writings that when they came to the Congo, I'm not saying they had 1,000,000 books, but they at least had books that were pertaining to their personal religious system. Look what they say. And truly, great numbers of these things were collected, for each person worshiped what most suited his taste. Remember that. Apart from any sense of rule or reason, so that there were numerous demons of strange and frightful forms. Now, why they're saying that is because basically in African religion and African spirituality, it wasn't as stringent as what we know as Christianity and Islam and Judaism. That wasn't, their religious systems were based on a connection with the spiritual realm and they were based on like ideas of morality and how to be a good person and how to please the gods. It wasn't so much as thou shalt not do this, thou shalt not do that, thou shalt not do this, and if you believe anything else, you got to get murdered and killed. You must be stoned. If you call God by a different name than I call God by, you must be stoned. This is how a lot of our ancestors were so easily converted to these other religions, because they did not see these other religions as demon worship. An individual could believe what they wanted to believe, but these other religions that they converted to, those religions demonized the religions that accepted them. So as successive generations came about, these religions that demonized the African religions that accepted them, they were forcefully stamped out, like what we're seeing right here with this guy burning anything that's contrary to Christianity. Now, check this out. Are there any references to these writings? Because what I want to do, I'm trying to make a connection between Central Africa and Hoodoo. Hoodoo, what our ancestors practiced on these shores. Is there any information about these holy writings in the writings of our direct ancestors? Because everybody's not from the Congo. You may not be able to point out your ancestors from the Congo, but you know for a fact your ancestors were on the plantations. So let's look at what our ancestors on the plantations had to say. Now, this is from the writing of one of our ancestors named Charles Ball. Okay, his grandfather came to America, or was brought to America, in around 1730 in Maryland, I believe it is. Now, after he escaped to freedom, he wrote down his autobiography. Remember, I've been telling you guys, and I've been bringing you guys these slave narratives. Excuse me, these AKA these oral histories, the oral histories of our ancestors. Now, these slave narratives aren't, the majority of them that I've been bringing to you guys are about 3-4 pages long, 2-3 pages long. There were interviews that were conducted in 1937 of ex-slaves. But remember, all throughout our enslavement, our ancestors were escaping. Now, a lot of times, these ancestors who escaped slavery, they too wrote down their slave narratives or their oral histories, and they talked about what slavery was like. This helped the abolitionist cause because it shed a light on the horrors of slavery. So what we're going to do, we're going to go into the autobiography of the ancestor Charles Ball, and I'm going to show you what he says about his grandfather, who came directly from Africa. Now, although I can't prove it 100%, it's a very, very good chance that he came from that Congo region, or Angola, or Luango, or one of those surrounding provinces who was under the rule of the Congolese Empire. Let me get a drink of my coffee, and then we're going to go into this oral history, aka slave narrative, and I'm going to blow your mind. Watch this. Okay, so Charles Ball says about his grandfather, who came directly from Africa. He says he never went to church or a meeting, and held that the religion of this country was altogether false, and indeed no religion at all, being the mere invention of priests and crafty men who hoped thereby to profit through the ignorance and credulity of the multitude. So basically, his grandfather always told him, hey, look, Christianity is false, it's fake, it's not no religion. It was created by crafty priests and crafty men who just wanted to profit off of your ignorance. They just wanted to get over on you, which is something we're going to highlight further on when we look to see what happened in the Congo. We're going to see. But check this out. His grandfather, he says about his grandfather, in support of this opinion, what opinion? That the religion of Christianity is false. He says he maintained that there could only be one true standard of faith, which was the case in his country, where all the people worshiped together in the same assembly and believed in the same doctrines which had been of old time delivered by the true God to a holy man who was taken up into heaven for that purpose. And after he had received the divine communication, had returned to earth and spent 100 years in preaching and imparting the truth which had been revealed to him to mankind. Now, pause. So his grandfather is saying off the rip of the religion of his country, the religion that's not Christianity, that's not associated with the Bible. Now, some people may say that he's talking about Islam, but we're going to dispel that here in a second. He's not talking about Islam either, although you will see some similarities as we keep reading. But that is just that there is a thread of truth throughout all religions. So all religions have points in which they meet. Even if you go all the way to a Buddhist, certain teachings of the Buddhist and the Hindu is going to correlate with Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and African spirituality. And it's going to correlate with Babylonian religion. And it's going to correlate with Persian religion. And it's going to correlate with Egyptian religion on some levels, but these things are not the same. So we see that according to the African spiritual tradition, they're saying that a long time ago, we're going to see that that's 10,000 years in a second, a long time ago, a holy man was taken up into heaven. Why? For the purpose of getting divine communication from the true God, and possibly from ambassadors of the true God, angelic or heavenly beings. And so this holy man was taken up into heaven for the sole purpose of receiving divine communication that he could bring back to earth with him. And once he came back to earth, he spent 100 years preaching and imparting the truth which had been revealed to him to mankind. So this guy went to heaven, came back, and for 100 years, he went around the earth giving this truth, imparting this truth to mankind. Now, we know Muhammad got the revelation of the Quran over a 23 year period, not 100 years. Moses, it didn't take Moses 100 years to get the Torah. Christianity, those books of Christianity of the New Testament, it didn't take 100 years for them to come about, and they didn't get it by going directly to God. None of them were taken up. Moses, Muhammad, Paul, Jesus, none of them were taken directly up to heaven, given this information, and brought back to earth. But this is the African story. Watch this. This inspired man resided in some country at a great distance from that of my grandfather, but had come there across a part of the sea in company with an angel. So this holy man who was going around the earth, he was not from that part of Africa where Charles Ball grandfather was from. This is how we know he spent 100 years traveling the earth. He didn't just go to one place. He traveled the earth giving out this information, and he had an angel, what Charles Ball is calling an angel, but this is an angelic being. This is a heavenly host. This is what the Egyptians may call the netters, what the Babylonians may call the Anunnaki. This is a heavenly being, a spirit being who accompanied him traveling the earth, giving out this divine information. Look, and he instructed the people in the mysteries of the true faith, which had ever since been preserved in its utmost purity by the descendants of those who received it through a period, watch this, through a period of more than 10,000 years. Now, I'm not trying to force you to believe any of this. I'm only teaching you this from a historical perspective. You need to know what was said, what was believed. So 10,000 years ago, this holy man went to heaven, got this doctrine, and passed it out to individuals on planet Earth. Okay, now watch this. Is there any type of book associated with this divine knowledge? He says, my grandfather said that the tenets of this religion were so plain and self-evident that anyone could understand them without any other instruction than the reading of a small book, a copy of which was kept in every family, in which contained all the rules both of faith and practice necessary for anyone to know or exercise. So every family had a copy of this small book. And this small book, it needed no hadiths. It needed no rabbinical Talmud. It needed no exegesis, eisegesis. It needed none of that. It was so plain and self-evident that if you had this small book, you would fully understand what this faith was practiced and believed, and you could exercise it. You didn't need nobody to explain it to you. You didn't need nobody to. You didn't need no preacher, pastor, imam, rabbi. You didn't need none of that. You didn't necessarily need it. You could understand it. Look what he says. No one was permitted to expound or explain this book, as it was known to be the oracle of the true God, and it was held impious for any person to give a construction to his words different from that which was so palpable and manifestly expressed on the face of the book. Now, that holds similarities with the Quran, I can't lie, and it holds similarities with the Jewish Torah, because they don't want you to change it. You can't change the words. If you're going to rewrite it, you have to copy it word for word because it's holy. But again, that idea, our ancestors, you can't say that our ancestors got that from the Arab, got that from the Jew. Perhaps they got it from us. Remember, even if you go all the way back into Egypt, and I like going to Egypt because it's no doubt that Egypt predates these Abrahamic faiths. If you go all the way back to Egypt, those hieroglyphs that we see, they're written in a script called the Medu Neter. Medu Neter, the divine utterances, like the divine utterances of God, the holy writings of God. Even hieroglyphic, the Greek name for it is sacred carvings. So the idea of a writing being holy, sacred, set apart, words of God, that predates any civilization known to man. First and foremost, any civilization known to man. Nobody got it from nobody. Why? Because if this is true, because some 10,000 years ago, and maybe those dates are a little off, but some 10,000 years ago, someone went around the world giving mankind this basic understanding of how they are supposed to live on planet Earth to be pleasing to God. So everyone would have some semblance or some similarities because the source may be this gentleman 10,000 years ago. Let's continue. He says, this book, remember, we're talking about books because there were sorcery books and quote unquote magic writings that were destroyed in the Congo. This book was likewise written in such plain and intelligible language that only one meaning could possibly be given to any one part of it, and was withal so compendious and brief that people could with very little labor commit the whole of its precepts to memory. The priest had it several times attempted to publish commentaries and glossaries upon this book, but as often as this had been attempted, the perpetrators have been tried, found guilty of conspiring to corrupt the public morals, and then banished from the country. People who were disposed to worship publicly convened together in summer under the boughs of a large tree, and the eldest person present read the inspired book from beginning to end, which could be done in 2 hours at most. So the longest time it would take to read this book is 2 hours. And I've already done the research that there's not a holy book that exists today of these major Abrahamic faiths that you can read in 2 hours. Yeah, maybe you can read some of them fast if you don't take no breaks, if you don't breathe, you know what I mean? If you read from sun up to sundown without pausing, without using the bathroom, without taking a drink of water, any of that, but you still won't be able to do it in 2 hours. That's another thing that discounts some of the Bible, the Torah, the Quran. It discounts all that because you can't read them in 2 hours. And he says 2 hours at the most, meaning that this book was so short, sweet, and to the point. Majority of the time, you can read it in under 2 hours. You see what I'm saying? Now look, sometimes a priest was employed to read the book, but he was never by any means allowed to add any observations of his own. Now we're going to skip over some of this, but check this out. He says the law in this book imposed no penalties on those who did not profess to believe the contents of the sacred book. But those who did not live according to its rules were deemed bad subjects and were compelled to become soldiers as being fit only for a life of bloodshed and cruelty. So there was no punishment for refusing to believe the book. You didn't get stoned. You didn't get beheaded. You didn't get your hand cut off. None of that. None of that. He says the book inculcated no particular form of belief and left men free to profess what faith pleased them. Boom. That deads everything else right there. It deads everything else right there. You could profess whatever faith that you wanted to believe in. It promoted no particular form of belief. It was just instructions on how to live directly from God. Directly from God, which is why anybody who had this book would allow a Christian, a Muslim, a Jew to what's the word I want to use? Come in, and they would accept them in and allow them to believe whatever faith that they wanted to believe. But unbeknownst to the person that allowed them in, their faith condemned you, while your faith didn't condemn them, and that was a major problem. And it's like I say, he goes on to say that the book required neither fastings, that deads it as well. Any faith that prescribes fasting, this ain't your book that he's talking about. This book required neither fastings, penances, nor pilgrimages, but tenderness to wives and children was one of its most positive injunctions, taking care of your family and taking care of the land. So we have evidence on the plantations of a 10,000-year-old religious text of our very own that could very well be these sorcery books and magic writings that were mentioned in the book, A Report of the Kingdom of Congo and of the surrounding countries. Now, what are some of the things that this book most likely talked about? What were some of the practices, the religious practices of our ancestors in the Congo? And can we see those practices manifest in what I'm calling hoodoo? Can I prove that hoodoo is African spirituality? And can I prove that it's coming directly from the Congo and surrounding regions? Look what the book goes on to say. Many held in great reverence. Now, this is a history of the Kingdom of Congo. We're picking up where we left off. Many held in great reverence winged dragons, which they nourished in their private houses, giving them the most costly viands to eat. Others, serpents of horrible shape, large goats, tigers, and various monstrous animals. And the more they were ugly and deformed, the more they held them in honor, regarding as sacred unclean birds such as bats, screech owls, and the like. In time, they chose for gods serpents, beasts, birds, plants, trees, various kinds of wood and stone, carving also on wood and stone representations of the above to form pictures. And not only did they worship living animals, but also those stuffed with straw. Now, I'm glad they documented this, but their explanation of it comes from a misunderstanding. Now, in Hoodoo and in African spirituality, we have a belief that everything is alive, everything is living, everything has consciousness. And inside of everything, every natural thing in this physical realm has the essence of the divine within it. Everything, right? Everything from the human to the pigeon, to the dog, to the cat, to the flower, to the tree, to the river, to the sun, to the stars, right? Now, in the African mind and to the Hoodoo practitioner, there is an understanding that the God that created all of creation, everything that we know, whatever force, energy, God, netter, spirit, whatever you call it, that thing that is responsible for the physical universe to exist, because we are a part of the physical universe, it is impossible for us to fully comprehend that which exists outside of the universe. I'm going to say it again. Because we exist within the physical universe, it is impossible for us to fully comprehend that which exists outside of the universe. So instead of going on a fool's errand and chasing fool's gold and trying to explain that which cannot be fully explained or understood, what we do is we look at aspects of creation that highlight aspects of the creator. That's what we do. Individual may conceptualize God as the giver of life. Okay, so we will look in nature and say, oh, well, the sun gives life. Without the sun, nothing on planet Earth could exist. Water gives life. If you don't drink water, you die. The plants give us oxygen and air. This atmosphere gives us life. We need these things to live. So whereas I can't comprehend the creator, but I can comprehend the sun, I can comprehend the river, the lake, the ocean, I can comprehend plants. So what I'm going to do, as opposed to spending my life trying to understand a God that I will never understand, I'm going to try to understand the water, the grass, the trees, the plants, the sun, moon, and stars, because the better I understand that, the better I can manipulate the natural world to make my existence better. You understand what I'm saying? Civilizations are advancing because we get better understandings of the universe that we are in. Any technology that we have is based on an understanding of the natural world. You have to immerse yourself in understand. You dig into the ground, you find the substance. This substance may be oil, but you don't have a term for this yet. But you encounter a substance. You have to start asking yourself, okay, what is this substance? How can I use this substance? How can this substance be manipulated? How can this substance help me in my life? Right? And then you have to work your brain to figure out how to manipulate that substance into the things that we have now that use oil, that use gas to operate. It would make no sense. You can't pray that a car be invented. I'm sorry. You can't pray that water, that polluted water, becomes purified. No, you have to you have to research, you have to study why the water is polluted, what is in the water that is making it undrinkable. Then you have to figure out what to do to the water to make it drinkable. Then you have to create the mechanism. You have to test the mechanism. Then you have to use the mechanism. I don't care what faith you believe in. You can't pray polluted water clean. You have to think your way through it. And the only way to think your way through it is if you're focused on the natural world. It's not worshiping it. It's understanding that this is what gives you life. Even now, you're looking at the sun. You have to understand the phases of the sun and the phases of the earth spinning around the sun in order to predict the seasons. You have to understand what's poisonous and what's not. You have to understand what animals you can eat and what you can't eat, and what animals, if you eat this animal, is going to give you diabetes or high blood pressure or cancer. You understand what I'm saying? So when they're talking about our ancestors worshiping the natural world, I mean, I accept the terminology, but what I'm saying is true religion or true spirituality is understanding that the Creator gave you the ability to build whatever type of world you want. You whatever type of world you want, you can build it. You may not be able to build it in 1 generation, 2 generations, 3 generations, 4 generations, but if 10 successive generations of humans with the brain that we have been blessed with have a plan to create a world, a fully sustainable world, we could do it. We just don't always agree. We so hell bent on fighting and warring and just all of this nonsense, man. But I digress. So, but look what they're saying. In the Congo, they created things like animals and human forms, and they used bits and pieces of the earth to make statues and what they call idols. And these things were utilized in their religious practices. Now, there are several examples, but on your screen, this is from the Congo region, and it's called the Nkandi. Nkandi. Now, remember, the Portuguese said how monstrous and diabolical these things look and how evil they look, which, looking at this thing with all of these nails and all of this stuff in it, yeah, it do look like hell. It do look like Hellraiser. I'm not gonna lie. If you don't understand, that could scare you off. But listen, Nkandi are mystical statuettes made by the Congo people of the Congo region. Nkandi are a subclass of Minkisi that are considered aggressive. The name Nkandi derives from the verb konda, meaning to hunt, and thus Nkandi means hunter because they can hunt down and attack wrongdoers, witches, or enemies. So there were statues that an individual would create that they use to ward off evil, basically, because you have to have a belief in the spirit world as well as the physical world if you're going to practice African spirituality or hoodoo. There is a belief in both. There is a belief in evil spirits. There is a belief in bad spirits. There is a belief in curses. There is a belief in bad energy. All of that exists, right? All of that exists. And so what they would do is they would build certain things that would, in essence, ward off the evil energy. Now, again, don't misunderstand it. If you're trying to ward off an evil spirit, right? Then you know a physical item cannot ward off a evil spirit. So what they would create, the image that's created on your screen that the Catholics in the Congo call idols, no, they created something that could house the positive divine energy that would ward off the negative energy. That's just a housing unit for the energy needed to ward off the evil energy. Now, why would they believe that something like this could work? Because a core of their belief system was that everything in existence had the divine in it. Whatever elements in the earth, those particular parts of the Nkandi come from. If you get some clay out of the earth, if you get some mud out of the earth, if you get some trees out of the earth, there is divine energy in these things. They are created to house divine energy. And if you already believe that you yourself, the human, were blessed by the ultimate creator to be a creator on planet Earth, you can, in essence, without disrespect, mimic the creator to create things to help you the same way you would create a brush to brush your hair. That's not crazy. You would create a toothbrush to brush your teeth. That's not crazy. You would create a tool. You would create a cup. You can create a fork to facilitate a need. You can also create a housing unit for the divine energy to ward off evil, because everything in creation does what? Houses the divine energy. At least that's you don't got to believe that, but I'm saying that's the thought process. So they believe that they could create something which is called an idol, and that thing would house, now that it's created, it can house the divine energy to ward off the bad energy. Okay, now look, the act of adoration in the Congo was performed in various ways, but always in the direction of humility. See, this is not ego driven. They're not trying to be God. Sometimes throwing themselves on their knees and taking up mouthfuls of earth, covering the face with dust, and making prayer to the idols, both in words and gestures, sacrifices of the best things they possess. Now, they're not praying to the idol, they're praying to the spirit that they believe the idol houses. You get it? They had also their sorcerers who told these simple people that the idol spoke to them, and deceiving them so far that if any sick presented themselves and were healed, the sorcerers ascribed the cure to the idols. But if they were not healed, they said the idols were angry. This was the sort of religion practiced amongst the people of Congo before they received baptism and the knowledge of the living God. Now, the king, having collected together from the different houses in the city all these false gods, commanded. Matter of fact, pause. I'm gonna hold off on that. I'm gonna hold off on that. Now, can we see in Hoodoo a mirroring of what we see in Central Africa? Now, this article on the right, I took this from the Boston Post newspaper. Now, this was published November 19th, 1868. Now, why I chose this is because 1868 is directly after the Civil War. Okay, directly after the Civil War. And they are describing in the same kind of disrespectful tone as the Portuguese, but they're going to describe what they're seeing with their eyes of hoodoo practices. Watch this. Among the Negroes of the lower portion of the Gulf states has long been prevalent a superstition that passes by the African name of hoodooism or voodooism. Remember, they called what we were doing in Africa superstition too. It's just what they say. So that's a similarity. But check this out. It amounts to a blind belief on the part of the blacks in the power of certain of their number to work upon other persons with every manner of evil spirits. Remember, in the Congo, they believed in evil spirits. They believed that evil spirits could attack them, and they believed that they had the power, or some people had the power, to ward off these evil spirits. Now, how did they do it? These peculiar ones are generally, if not wholly, native Africans. And this came from Africa. And the spell of terror which they are able to throw around the others can hardly be comprehended from a description. The hoodoo men are objects of superstitious veneration. They cunningly contrive, watch what they contrive, they cunningly contrive a number of and curious objects, such as bunches of feathers of various colors, the teeth of dogs and cats, clay taken from graves, blood, eggshells, broken bits of glass and beads, which either separately or fantastically combined they employ to conjure with, and with the Negroes generally, in which the Negroes generally pay worship to with superstitious veneration. This sort of sorcery prevails in Africa among the worshippers of the fetish. So it's the exact same thing. They took elements of the natural world, animals, plants, feathers, glass, beads, and they created objects. And these objects would either bring or invite good energy, positive spirits, or ward off evil and ward off evil energy and evil spirits. Now, everyone didn't know how to do this. That's why in America they talk about the hoodoo men or the conjurers. Now in Africa, you would have specifically what we disrespectfully know as the witch doctors, but you always had what would most likely be the elders in the area, or people rose up in the craft who understand the science. In any religion, in any spiritual tradition, you have those who officiate, teach, preserve the knowledge. You have the priests, you have the imams, you have the pastors, you have the deacons, you have the rabbis, right? You have the prophets, you have the individuals that interpret dreams, etc., etc., etc. This is a common thread through all religions, but we see the quote unquote idol building of natural elements to ward off evil. We see it in hoodoo and we see it in Central Africa. Okay, the Central African origins of hoodoo, 10,000-year-old religion. Now, I wanted to leave that up on the screen for a good amount of time, and I want you to see how disrespectful they were to it. It's superstition. Before I go to the next page, I want you, this in Kandi is superstition. These idols are devil worship. Evil is foolish, right? They need to burn the sorcery books. They need to burn the magic writings. They need to burn all of the idols in the Congo. Check this out, family. Check this out. Look, they say, now the king, remember the story that we're following in the a report of the kingdom of the Congo, the King Alfonso, he has just ordered that our 10,000-year-old religious books be burned and all of our quote unquote idols be destroyed. Now look, now the king, having collected together from the different houses in the city all these false gods, commanded that in the same place where a short time before he had fought and conquered his brother's people, everyone should bring a piece of wood till a great pile was raised, and there cast in the idols and all other things which they had treated before as sacred. so that all might be burned. Then he assembled all these people together. Now listen to this. This is a mental sickness. I gotta call it what it is. Then he assembled all these people together, and in place of their idols, gave them crosses and images of the saints which he had received from the Portuguese, and commanded each of his lords to build a church and erect crosses in the city of the province where they ruled, as he had given them example. Now, you mean to tell me on your religious rampage, all of your ancestral religious texts and religious books, they got to be burned. All of the Nkandi, all of the Minkisi, all of the so-called idols, all of the animal figures and human figures that your ancestors created to ward off evil and invite good energy, all of that is superstitious. All of that is foolishness. All of that has no place in real religion, and it must be destroyed. And then as soon as you destroy it, in the same place those quote unquote idols were, you replace it with crosses and images of the saints. And one can only imagine text from the Hebrew Bible. I'm finna take a drink of my coffee. I want to let that marinate in your mind. Let me ask you a question. What is a saint as it relates to Catholicism? Because Catholicism is what ransacked the Congo. What is a saint? A saint is a human being born of a mother and father, right? A human being like me and you, who was a Catholic, who after their death, they lived such a quote unquote holy and righteous life that after death, they were raised to sainthood. Now, there are certain things that there are certain requirements that must be met before someone can be raised to be a saint. But this isn't a teaching on Catholicism, although we could get into that. You have to have miracles ascribed to their name, etc., etc. But just the mere fact that a saint is a Catholic who after death was rose to sainthood. Now, these saints, you have the saint of travelers. You have the saint of, inventors. You may have the saint of different things. So like, let's say I am traveling from one area to the next. And let's say I want divine protection over me as I travel so I won't be harmed. I can invoke the saint, the patron saint of travelers. And this saint in the other realm is supposed to protect me. I can even have an image, which is, oddly enough, isn't an idol, but I can even have an image of this saint that I keep on my person. And this image of this saint is not the saint, but it is a representation of the energy of the spiritual saint in the other realm that is supposed to do something and help me in my physical life as I travel. But ancestor worship, for some reason, is wicked and of the devil. So you mean to tell me, if I get caught praying to grandma, right? If I get caught praying, hold on, we gotta, they look more like vampires now to me, LOL. Fam, all that blood they be drinking, trying to stay young and alive. Yeah, they literally have these types of rituals. One of the main rituals of Christian, and I'm not bashing nothing. We're talking, this is purely historical information. One of the biggest Christian rituals is communion, where you symbolically drink Jesus and eat his flesh. Come on, man. We can't sugarcoat it. We can't sugarcoat this. But listen, if I say that, okay, you know what? I'm having a hard time in my life. Let me pray to grandma and grandpa that they move things in the spiritual realm for me. The Catholic would say, oh, whoa, wait a minute. Ancestral worship, bad. Here, don't pray to grandma. Pray to pray to St. Francis. Get out of here. And look, man, let me zoom in on some of this. Here we have one of the popes. I don't know which one he is. Don't care. It's been so many. But look at his throne. Look at his throne. On this throne, look at these images that he have. Little winged babies. I've never read about a winged baby, even in the Bible. You understand what I'm telling you? I've never read about a winged baby in the Bible. Never. Not once. No Cupid. Never seen the name. But even with that, why ask yourself, why when the Catholic goes to somebody else's land, oh, y'all need to destroy all these idols, all these images that your own people created for their own purposes, destroy all that. But this clown, no disrespect, but it is what it is, this clown can have images of babies on his throne. And look at what he's wearing. Look at what he's wearing on the borders. You see those images? 9 times out of 10, those represent prophets of the Bible or disciples. Ancestors is what it represents. Even on his hat, that's Mary. Mary not Jesus. Mary not God. Mary not the Holy. This is not even your God. It's just a woman. Well, that may be Jesus. Now I'm looking at it a little better. But they worship Mary too. But look at on top. Look at the top of his chair. That's an animal with wings. Maybe a bird. But that's an animal. But remember, the animals, the creations in the Congo, they had to destroy those animals that look like dragons and birds and bats and screech owls. All of that was unholy. And you see in the background a cross. Now, everybody knows. You see it in all kinds of movies. If they're trying to deal with a demon-possessed individual, the priest, they come holding a cross and holding the Bible, like that cross got some kind of power. People, when they pray, they hold the cross, they kiss the cross. That's not an idol, huh? Let's look at the next. Look, he's bowing down, praying. Remember, they said that our ancestors was worshiping these items because they prayed in front of them. Foolish. But this guy is on his knees praying. Other people are around him praying with these little babies with wings, these idols, golden idols. But this is okay. This is okay. Look at this bottom image. Look. That's supposed to be baby Jesus in the manger. And remember this, that's supposed to be like some holy smoke, some incense burning. But if you burn incense, if you burn sage, you better believe you on your way to hell. But what is he doing burning incense to this statue of a baby? Behind the baby, look, you got a lion with wings. Lions don't have wings in reality. This is a mythical creature. This is fantasy. Then you have these other angels kneeling down with wings on their back. On top of that, you gotta look like a ram or a lamb. Now I know they say that Jesus is the lamb, Jesus is the ram, but you got the baby Jesus right here. How is it two Jesuses in one image? But you got these animals and these idols, and you're burning candles, but you're not a witch. You understand what I'm saying? So look, now read this again. Then, after burning the items in the Congo, then he assembled all these people together, and in place of their idols, gave them crosses and images of the saints, which he had received from the Portuguese. So the Portuguese was like, no, you don't need those idols that you made. Here, take the idols that we made. you know? And again, I'm not here to convert anybody to nothing. What I'm doing is I'm giving you a historical context, and I'm showing that it's okay for you if you want to believe and practice your ancestors' religion. But what I'm really doing is I'm showing that it's not your ancestors are superstitious and theirs not. Every religion in the world operates on some of the same core fundamental principles. It's just in the doctrine of certain religions, they ignore that and they demonize other religions while they themselves do the exact same thing. And again, this thread that goes through all religions could quite possibly go back to our tradition that goes back over 10,000 years in our religious books. Look what he says. After this, after he got the Catholic idols, he announced to them and to the people that he had sent ambassadors to Portugal to bring back priests who would teach them religion and administer the holy sacraments and show the way of salvation. Now, what is a holy sacrament? In Catholicism, you have the hierarchy. If you want to be forgiven for your sins, you go to the confession booth, you go to the religious authority, you confess your sins, you say some Hail Marys, and you are forgiven. You want to be baptized, you got to go to the holy man. They dip you under the water, they perform the ritual, they say the spell, you come up, you clean, now you in the faith. But again, they understand that they have priests who administer the holy sacraments. But if I tell you about our ancestors going to a specific conjure man or conjure woman to perform holy African sacraments, we've been conditioned in our minds to see something wrong with that. Right? Now look, also to bring images of God. How do they know? They don't know what God looked like. There is no images of God. Actually, they don't even know what Jesus looked like. They don't know what Peter, Paul, Matthew, John, James, Moses. They don't know what, man, if Moses walked into a synagogue or a church right now, how would they know that's Moses? They don't, it wasn't no pictures back then. They don't know what these people look like. They making it up. They just creating images. Right? They just creating images from their minds. But they understand that the image is irrelevant. It's the energy that you associate with the image is the power. Right? So they brought back the Portuguese for some kind of way. They got images of God that they brought to the Congolese. Of the Virgin Mary, they don't know what Mary looked like, and of the saints to distribute amongst them, and that they must meanwhile remain steadfast in the faith. This, however, was so rooted in their hearts already that they no longer thought of the idols and false gods which they had given up. Then they began to build churches and whatnot. After they destroyed that Central African religion, they just replaced it with their own. They tore down African idols and built their own. Which is right now today, I guarantee if I was having a debate with a Abrahamic faith believer and I was talking about hoodoo, they would talk about it in the most disrespectful terms. But I can show them the same correlating stuff in what they believe. The only difference is, and this is where I got them at, when I'm talking about hoodoo, I'm talking about directly what my ancestors created. Nobody else is doing that. Our ancestors didn't create Christianity. And I'm not saying it wasn't black people or Judaism or Islam. And I don't even care if they was black people, not even Egypt. I don't care if they was black people. I'm saying what I can prove who my direct ancestors are, the individuals that was enslaved on those plantations. I can prove that without a doubt or contradiction. I can prove it. Then I can prove what religious or spiritual tradition that they created, and I can promote that. And I know I'm promoting what my ancestors created, not what nobody else created. I can do it easily. And look, meanwhile, the Portuguese ships arrived, bringing numerous teachers of the Holy Scriptures. They already had Holy Scriptures, but they burned them. That's why we don't have it today. They burned them. Which friars and priests of the orders of St. Francis, St. Dominic, and St. Augustine, regular humans. These all, with much charity and zeal, disseminated the Catholic faith, which was received alike by everyone in the kingdom. The priests themselves were treated with as great reverence as if they were saints being worshipped. So they discarded their own religion, discarded, not all of them, for the saints. Now, we're going to take a quick commercial break in the teachings. You guys know I always call myself the real bookworm. I do that for a reason, because I read everything. But not only do I read, I also call myself the chief scribe. Why do I do this? Because I'm a real author. It's not a name I made up. I'm not just calling myself a chief scribe because it sounds good. I'm not calling myself the real bookworm because it sounds good. I actually have 16 published works right now. And for several of my books, I have been highlighted in my local newspapers for my accomplishments. Now, if you like to read, what I want you guys to do, I think I need to put a link in the chat, but matter of fact, let me do that real quick while y'all just look at this screen right here. Let me go get that link and try to put it in the chat real quick. Sometimes my phone be acting up. I'm gonna try to do it on my phone. But the first book that I published is a book called Suicide Note. Suicide Note by Matthew Daniels. Now, what's so powerful about this, family? I have a past. Just like the majority of us have a past. I've been to prison twice. Okay? I've been to prison twice. One for robbery and one for illegally carrying a firearm. Okay? Now, the second time I was in prison, I changed my life. Right? I changed my life. That's the link for Suicide Note. The Amazon link for anybody that want to purchase it. When I was in prison the second time, I changed my life. And while I was in there, I got back to my first love of writing. Now, this book right here that I'm highlighted in my local newspaper for, L. Bigfoot says, congratulations, family. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. This is one of the major accomplishments that I hope I'll be remembered for long after I die. This book, Suicide Note, is one of the books that I wrote while I was incarcerated. And I remember telling the brothers that was locked up with me when I was writing the book that I didn't care how long it took. When I got out, I was going to get it published. I had laser-like focus, and I was successful. So Suicide Note is an urban fiction novel, gang banging, drug sales, murder, sex, the whole 9 yards, car chases, cops, gun battles, the whole 9 yards. It's your traditional urban fiction novel, one of the best that's out there on the market. What you guys can do if you want to support the real bookworm, you want to support this channel, you like this information that I'll be giving, you want to support literacy, and you want to support a brother who really and truly changed his life, you can go to Amazon.com or BarnesandNobles.com, type in Suicide Note by Matthew Daniels, and you can order a copy of a Suicide Note. I greatly appreciate it. Now, I said I have 16 published works. I also have a 12-volume work that I wrote last year in 2023. What I did is every single day, without fail, I'm a very dedicated and focused individual. Every day, without fail, I wrote a new short story about 3 to 4 pages long. And in this short story, I wrote it as in, it's like it's fantasy, mythology, allegory. Every story has its own characters, its own setting, its own background, but every story is incorporated within the tale itself is a deeper meaning, and it's a higher understanding of how I view life. And I impart through the story a teaching that will help you become the best version of yourself. We all deal with things like depression. We all deal with things like stress. Sometimes we feel like we aren't enough. Sometimes life comes at us hard. Sometimes we don't want to get out of bed in the morning and we don't know where we're going to find the strength to continue. Now, some people, like myself, we are self-motivated. I motivate myself, and I just have a unnatural drive given to me by the Creator to succeed, because I feel like I was placed on earth to write. I feel like that's my calling. So I'm driven to do that. And so what I wanted to do is create a system to help anyone reach their full potential. So this 12-volume series, Morning Motivation with Matthew Daniels, is a mechanism by which I can help anyone become the best version of themselves. All you have to do is every morning when you wake up or every night before you go to sleep, you can read a new story. And at the end of each story, you don't have to guess what it's about. At the end of each story, I explain the meaning of the story. Okay? So you know exactly how to apply this wisdom in your life. Every day you read a story, every day you get some motivation, some inspiration, you get some deep wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, and you use that and you apply that to your life. Now, by the end of 365 days, you will have read 365 stories, and I guarantee your mind will be changed in such a way that where yes, you can start over and read through the 365 stories again, but you will have something within yourself that will that repetition will carry you forward. Okay, so I have it's called Morning Motivation with Matthew Daniels, volume 1 through 12. Each book correlates to each month. There's 30 stories in each book, 30 short stories. Now, in volume 12, I had to write 35 stories because it's 365 days in a year. Okay, so everyone is 30 stories, 30 short stories, original stories written by myself that I wrote in the process of 1 year. And in book 12, volume 12 is 365 stories. And the individual may ask, how do I know that the system that I created with Morning Motivation with Matthew Daniels, how do I know it will work? Well, I know it will work because I proved it while doing it. I'm saying that if you train your mind to think on the level that I'm teaching you to think, you can accomplish any goal in life. How did I prove that? Because I literally wrote one new story every day for 365 days. Now, people ask me, how were you focused enough? How did you come up with that much inspiration? How did you come up with that many stories, that many characters, that many settings, that many motivational topics? How did you do it? I did it by applying the thought process that I embedded in each story. That's how I was able to get up every day and write a new story and chase my dreams of being the chief scribe, the real bookworm. I did it by applying the wisdom that I put in the books. So when an individual looks up and sees that every day for a year straight, I wrote a new story, an individual can say, well, damn, anything is possible. If this guy accomplished this, I must know something. If I was able to accomplish that, I must know something. And what I know is in the book. So you can also go to Amazon.com, BarnesandNobles.com, type in Morning Motivation with Matthew Daniels. I suggest you start at volume 1, but get any volume that you like. It doesn't really matter where you start. It'll still take you through 365 by the end of it. And I was also highlighted in my local newspaper for that. Now, to show you how once you apply the thinking that I apply to life, anything is possible. 5 of my 16 published works are housed in the public library right now. 2 of the books that are in my public library I wrote while I was in prison. Y'all see the title, Suicide Note. Suicide Note and Thicker Than Water, I wrote in prison. So I have Suicide Note, Thicker Than Water, and I have volume 1, 2, and 3 of Morning Motivation in my local library right now. And an individual may say, it's like, whoa, how did you come from the background that you come from? How did you come from being incarcerated 2 different times to having 16 published works that have been sold all over the world? I'm not lying, in various countries. And how did you get 5 of your 16 published works in the public library? I did it, family, by applying the wisdom that I put inside of these 12 books. These 12 books is as of now, this was my life's work. If I was to die today, an individual could read that and they would know me. They would know me. Okay. But back to our regularly scheduled program. Thank you for hanging out through my commercial break. Now we're going to talk about, now that we've looked at, again, some of the traditions and religion in the Congo, we're going to see how our ancestors in the South held on to and preserved these ancient ways in this ancient religion. And I'm also going to explain a little bit how some of these true teachings were distorted and misused, the true teachings of the 10,000-year-old religion. Look what they say in the newspaper as pertaining to Hoodoo. It is scarcely a matter of surprise that this degrading custom is spreading with such rapidity among the body of Southern blacks. All the teachings of an enlightened Christian class of men and women are eradicated in an instant, as it were, by the presence of this active superstition. And basically all they're trying to say is they wanted to convert our ancestors to full-blown Christianity, but although they were Christian in name, they refused to give up all of their ancient ways and their ancient religion. Sandra asks you, good morning, good to see you, Queen, good to see you, good to have you. Look what they say. It bewitches them, and for the time places them wholly in the power of the sorcerers. A number of most strange cases illustrating the fruits of their superstition have recently been published in southwestern papers. In every such case was disclosed the profound control which faith in Hoodooism had gained over the minds of the Negroes. They could not be prevailed on to do aught that might imply disrespect to the silly fetish which they held in such slavish reverence. Now, I don't know why it's so important to them to destroy our religious beliefs. Just promote your own. Why do you have to attack us? Because there's power in respecting your own culture, and it's power in knowing your history. The Hoodoo men are shrewd in their practices and play their game boldly, but they show that they possess an instinctive faith in the same themselves, though curiously mixed with the cunning which rather argues to the contrary. To make the hoodoo or fetish, the clay, the feathers, the teeth, the bones, the blood, and the glass and beads are worked together in an indistinguishable mass so as to bear some sort of resemblance to an animal. And when a Negro hears that he has been set for him, the conjure, which is usually done by placing the nondescript image in the pillow, in the bed, under the step, or in any snug place, the effect is that of a perfect terrorism upon its object, from whose fascination he is unable to escape. Now, we've already explained how exactly what our ancestors were doing, all other religions do. Well, maybe not Islam. They really stick to that, no images or anything. They really kind of stick to that. But in majority of other religions, they do the exact same thing. But they demonize our ancestors for it. Now, what you have to understand, when you look into our history, you had what is known as like fake conjure men, fake conjure women, fake hoodoo doctors, and fake hoodoo practitioners, fake root workers. That is a thing. And so because some of them were fake, an individual tried to profess that all were fake. Yes, you had some people who abused the teachings. You had some people that distorted the teachings, and you had some people that misused the teaching. But that happens in every single religion. You shouldn't throw your religion away just because someone misuses it. I'm of the belief that there are certain people born who are more connected to the spirit realm than others. There are some people born to be conjurers, to be priests, to be preachers. There are some people born with this innate ability, and there are some who are taught by others who are born with these innate abilities. So there is a way in which an individual can be taught these things, and there is a way that an individual can be born with these powers, but there are instances where people fake it. So you really kind of have to be careful. You can't trust everybody. That's why I tell people all the time, I don't consider myself a conjurer. I don't consider myself a hoodoo doctor. I don't consider myself a priest. I'm a scribe. I write. I write. If anything, I'll consult the ancestors to give me the understanding of what was in that 10,000-year-old book, and I can put it back down into writing. I can make a book that associated with hoodoo that tells those practices. That's what an individual like me, that's what I'm born to do. I'm born to write. Some people are born to heal. Some people are born to interpret dreams. Some people are born to interpret signs and omens. And yes, signs and omens are real. We're going to get into that. I'm going to explain the science to you. Now, a portion of our religion in Central Africa and in hoodoo that has been misused is the understanding and explanation of omens, portents, and signs. These things are real. And I'm going to explain the science of an omen to you. Okay? And I'm going to explain how it was in Central Africa. I'm going to explain how it's in hoodoo. And then I'm going to explain to you what it really is. Okay? So we're going to start with the Britannica definition of an omen. And they say it comes from occultism. It doesn't. It's a fact of reality. And I'm going to teach you the science. Let me get a drink of my coffee. Okay, we're going in today. An omen is an observed phenomenon that is interpreted as signifying good or bad fortune. In ancient times, omens were numerous and varied and included, for instance, lightning, cloud movements, the flight of birds, and the paths of certain sacred animals. Within each type of sign were minor subdivisions, such as the different kinds of bird in flight or the direction of flight in relation to the observer, each of which had a special meaning. So an omen is basically looking at the natural world and trying to determine if it's bad luck coming, good luck coming, what's going to be the outcome of some future event, looking into the future. An omen is using the natural world to divine what's going to happen. Now this is real. Don't lose me yet. This is real. Now first I'm going to show it to you in the Congo in Central Africa. Then I'm going to show it to you in hoodoo, and then I'm going to give you the science. Okay, so in the book that we're looking at that's talking about Central African religion, they say that these people, the Congolese, are very superstitious. The same thing that they keep saying about hoodoo. This is how we know it's the same practice. These people are very superstitious. If a bird chanced to fly on their left hand or cries in a certain manner, which they profess to understand, predicts danger or ill luck, or that they are to proceed no further, they turn back at once. A custom also observed by the Romans in early times and by other heathen nations at that day. Now, they don't give us a lot of information about the omens of the Congo, but we can see that they look to animals and they look to signs in the sky to predict what is going to happen. And these understanding of omens and portents and signs, they say, go all the way back to the Roman Empire. Go back to the Greeks, the Romans, the Babylonians, the Persians, the Egyptians, the Nubians, the people in Sudan, all over Western Central Africa, South Africa, pretty much all over the world, even Native Americans. Okay? Now, let's look at some omens in hoodoo. I want to show you that omens are also in hoodoo. But take note what I highlighted. In the Congo, birds cry. If a bird cries in a certain manner, it can predict danger or ill luck. We're lucky that they specified that because that's specific in hoodoo as well. You see this in a lot of the slave narratives, but we're just going to look at one for the sake of time. This is the slave narrative of Jack Atkinson from the Georgia Slave Narratives, aka Oral Histories. He says, a hooting owl is a show sign of rain, and a screech owl means death for a fact. Death is ill or bad luck. Nobody wants to die. And you see that they almost all of them believed, for whatever reason, that a screech owl could mean death. Now, look, I want to go back to something real quick. I want to show you guys something. Remember this page where they say when they're talking about animals that are held in great reverence in the Congo. Look, they held them in honor, regarding as sacred unclean birds such as bats, screech owls, and the like. Screech owls in the Congo. Why would they be held as sacred? Because they could be used in the understanding of an omen or a portent. Remember, in omens, the paths, the flights, the noises that a certain sacred animal makes can be interpreted as an omen. This directly translated into hoodoo when they say that a screech owl can mean death. And this a hooting owl is a sign of rain. These are omens meant to interpret the future. He also says a tree frog's holler is a true sign of rain. Now, all of these omens may not be true. What they're saying they represent may not be true, but I'm going to show you more concepts of omens in hoodoo. Okay, just so you can get an idea, so you can see it's prevalent. Another omen based on the observations of an animal that our ancestors believed in with hoodoo, they said, when you see a dog lay on its stomach and slide, it is a true sign of death. That's using the actions of a dog to interpret an omen that death is coming. Look, another sign of death is to dream of a newborn baby. That's dream interpretation, an omen coming through a dream. Look, if ever you clean your bed, don't you never sweep off your springs with a broom. Always wipe them with a rag or use a brush. Just as sure as you do, you see and experience death around you. So that could be another omen of death coming if someone sweeps off their bed with a broom. Okay. Hold on. Another one. The following are a few of luck charms as described by Miss Avery. Black cat bone is taken from, well, nah, that's not really an omen. That's a that's something that was created. But those are some more instances of our ancestors looking at animals to interpret what was about to happen, to interpret bad or ill luck. So this idea that there are sacred animals and the actions of these particular animals can be interpreted as a omen or a sign. Okay, now that I've shown what an omen is, now that I've shown it in Central Africa, and now that I've shown it in Hoodoo, let me explain the science behind it. This is the science behind it. Okay, I live along the Gulf Coast. I live in Texas. Okay, we get hurricanes a lot in this area. Now, they can predict when a hurricane is coming and where the hurricane will hit based on what? Signs in nature and signs in the sky. When you have hot bodies of water, hot air and cold air meeting in a particular place over the Atlantic Ocean, they can create tropical storms. These tropical storms, given the right circumstances and the right wind speeds, can create hurricanes. These hurricanes and tropical storms can be seen before they arrive if you know how to look at the sky and interpret the signs in the sky. When clouds look a certain way, when the air feels a certain way, when the wind blows a certain way, you can understand that a hurricane might be brewing. Okay. Also, when you look at the actions of certain animals, when hurricanes are about to form, a lot of times when tornadoes are about to hit, when an earthquake is about to erupt, when a volcano is about to erupt, when these natural disasters, when a heavy storm is about to hit, anybody who has animals will notice a dog, a cat, a bird, a cow, an antelope, a deer. It's like animals have a greater sense for these things. So in the ancient past, our ancestors learned how we learn now to look at the signs in the sky. Look at the movements of the sun and the movements of the moon to determine the seasons, to determine when it's going to rain, when the rain won't come, when the rain will be extremely heavy, when these natural disasters are going to occur. They learned how to look at the signs in the sky to interpret when these things were coming. And they also learned that certain animals reacted a certain way when natural disasters were about to occur. So an individual learned that the actions of certain, quote unquote, certain animals, when they made certain calls, when they disappeared from a certain region, when out of nowhere they all began to fly in one way, when the antelope and the herds, they all ran off in one direction, when your domesticated animals started acting crazy and trying to break out of their enclosure, an individual could look at the animal behavior, look at the signs in the sky, and they could interpret or predict the weather. Okay, this is the basis of omens importance. This is the basis of that. Now, every omen may not be real. Every time you hear a screech owl does not necessarily mean death. But perhaps in the ancient past, when certain atmospheric conditions were about to create a storm, a particular ancestor may have noticed that these owls screech in a certain way. They screech in a certain tone and get the hell out of Dodge. And so they was like, okay, whenever we hear this owl make this noise and get the hell out of Dodge, we know something bad finna happen. Whenever we see these animals migrate, when it ain't the migration season, we know that something bad is about to happen. These are the omens, and this is the basis of an omen and a portent. When you don't have technology, when you don't have satellites to watch we don't have satellites to watch what's going on in the clouds and things like that. You have to use other means to predict what's about to happen. And you do that by watching the sky, and you do that by watching the animals. But this is another thing that dates back thousands and thousands of years, but we see it in the Congo, and we also see it in Hoodoo. Another thing that we see in the Congo that we see translated into Hoodoo is the idea that roots, herbs, and plants can be used for healing. Look what they say about the Congo. They say, in this kingdom, simple medicines are made from herbs, trees, oils, waters, and stones, which Mother Nature has shown the people how to use. Give it to you again. In this kingdom, simple medicines are made from herbs, trees, oils, waters, and stones, which Mother Nature has shown the people how to use. Fever, and that's basically that the nature itself will teach you what you can use to heal yourself. This is what the medicinal properties, the medicines came from in the Congo. And this is why in Hoodoo, the conjure man or the conjure woman would use roots and herbs and plants, because they learned that. They brought that with them over from Africa. Look what they say. Fever is the most common malady and prevails more in winter than summer, the rains bringing both heat and moisture. Besides, this is also what we call the French disease, known in the Congo tongue as chitangas. But this is not so dangerous or difficult to cure in those regions as with us. Meaning, they call it the French disease, but it's harder for the Portuguese to cure this than it is for the people in the Congo, saying that the medicine in the Congo was better. Fever, they cure with a powder of red and gray sandalwood, which is the Lignum aquila. This powder is mixed with palm oil, and after anointing the sick person 2 or 3 times with it from head to toe, he recovers. For head maladies, they apply certain small horns to the temples, first piercing the skin a little, and then sucking the blood into the horn till it is full, using the same means for drawing blood from any other part of the body when in pain as a cure. This manner of bloodletting was practiced also in Egypt. The disease mentioned above as chitangas, they cure with the same sandalwood ointment, the red being called tavila and the gray chikongo. The gray is most valuable, even a slave being given a small quantity of it. Purgatives they make from bark of trees ground to powder and taken in some kind of potion. Now look what they witnessed. Wounds are cured with the juice of herbs and by applying the herbs themselves. And Lopez relates having seen a slave who was pierced with 7 mortal wounds from arrows, entirely restored by the juice of certain well-known herbs in that country. Meaning he saw somebody that got shot 7 times with arrows, all of them mortal wounds, meaning he should die. He was fully healed with the herbs of that country. Now let's look at hoodoo. When talking about the medicine that the hoodoo doctors use, this ancestor says, I never studied conjuring, but I knows that scorpions and things they conjures with as powerful medicine. They uses hair and fingernails and tacks and dry insects and worms and bat wings and such. Mammy always tie a leather string around the baby's necks when they teething to make them have easy time. She used a dry frog or piece nutmeg too. The conjure man show bad. They make you have pneumonia and boils and bad luck. I carries a jack all the time, and it am the charm wrapped in red flannel. Look what he says. If and you fills a shoe with salt and burns it, that call luck to you. I wears a dime on a string round the neck and one round the ankle, that to keep any conjure man from setting the trick on me. That dime a bright, that dime be bright if in my friends I'm true. It sure gonna get dark if and they do me wrong. For to make a jack that I'm so good, get snake root and sassafras and a little lodestone and brimstone and asafoetida and resin and bluestone and gum arabic and a pod or two red pepper. Put this in the flannel bag at midnight on the dark of the moon, and it shall do the work. So even in hoodoo, they understood animals, roots, plants, and herbs were to be used for healing. The only difference is how they say in the Congo, Mother Nature showed the people what herbs and plants to use. Likewise, in America, there's different animals, there's different plants, there's different fauna. So Mother Nature, again, had to show them what they could use in their new environment that they could use for medicines. And they figured it out. Look, according to another one of the ancestors, they say when the slaves got sick, they had doctors and used old herbs. Jerusalem ore was a kind of herb for children to build them up, and there was field grass roots and herb roots, which was boiled in tea drunk for fevers, and primarine tea, which was drunk too. Sometimes they would hang garlic around small boys and girls' necks to keep away any kind of sickness. El Bigfoot say I'm going to catch up with the rest later. Fam, have a great, yeah, no doubt, family. Yeah, I got an off day, so I'm trying to do a long one. I'm throwing a lot in there, but no doubt, thanks for hanging out as long as you did. Naambe, Ubuntu, peace and power to you too, family. Thanks for tapping in. But we see in the Congo them using herbs for medicine, and in hoodoo they're using herbs for medicine as well. The only difference is the herbs, plants, trees, animals, they're different from in the Congo. Okay, and look, I want to point out something specific. In the Congo, they said that this powder is mixed with palm oil, and after anointing the sick person 2 or 3 times with it from head to foot, he recovers. So anointing oil. Peace, Brooklyn Zoo. All right, El Bigfoot, great to have you, family. So the concept of anointing oil does not come from other religions. Everybody damn near did it. But our ancestors, for a fact, in the Congo, they anointed with oil and they used that for healing. And I'm going to show you that same concept of anointing from head to toe to perform a healing that also transferred directly into hoodoo. In the story that's highlighted, they say that I got a son named Jack Hurd. Well, somebody fixed him. They're basically talking about an individual who they believe was conjured. And they say that it was something wrong with his mind and that he would squeal just like a pig. And he would get down on his knees and bark just like a dog. So the ancestor, in order to help their son, they went to see an old conjure doctor. Now, what did the conjure doctor do? The conjure doctor made a minkisi, just like they would make in the Congo, and he made it with animal parts and special and sacred items. But he also did what? Let me zoom in on this part. I don't want you to miss it. The bottom, the very bottom that I got highlighted. Then he took Jack in a room, took off his clothes, and started to rub him down with medicine. So he created the oil, he created the medicine associated with the healing, and he began to anoint his body. He took off his clothes and began to anoint his body with the medicine or the oil. Just like we see in the hoodoo, the anointing from head to toe to try to heal someone. And just like in the Congo, the person after being anointed was healed. This individual from the conjure story, they were healed as well. Now, one more thing, and we're about to wrap this up in just a second. I had to throw this in because I was taking a lot of shots at Catholicism because that's what destroyed the ancestral religion in the Congo. Now, with the Catholics and with Christianity as a whole, they got a concept of holy water. But have you ever asked yourself, what's the difference between regular water and holy water? The holy water that they used to bless people with, the holy water that they used to cast out demons with. I'm gonna get a drink of my coffee, but I want you to ask yourself, in Christianity, Catholicism specifically, what's the difference between regular water and holy water? The difference is holy water has been blessed by the priest, right? Has been blessed by the priest. Now, it's not superstitious for them to believe that the water has changed because a priest has spoken some words of blessing over it. That's not superstitious at all to them. But if you do it in hoodoo, it's superstitious. But I want to show you guys something. And this is another thing that the ancestor brought from Africa. Look, they're going to talk about a conjure woman named Aunt Dorcas. That's what they're talking about, who lived to be around 128 years old. Now, she was blind. But even though she was blind, she was able to, with the power of the Lord, which is the power of God, was able to help her. Now, remember, just because she says Lord does not mean she's a Christian how you think. I've already shown you guys that hoodoo is a mix between African spirituality and like Christianity, Islam, Judaism, etc., etc. And so they hid their African spirituality under Christian terminology a lot. But look what they say about her. She was blind, but she could go to the woods and pick out any kind of root or herb she wanted. She always said the Lord told her what roots to get, and always, for sun up, you would see her in the woods with a short handled pick. She said she had to pick them for the sun up. I don't know why. So we have a blind lady who could go into the woods, find any kind of root or herb she was looking for. And she said the Lord would tell her what she needed and where it was at. So she was guided by some spiritual power. Watch what they say. If you were sick, all you had to do was go to see Aunt Dorcas and tell her she had a well. And after listening to your complaint, she would go out there and draw a bucket of water and set it on the floor. And then she would wave her hand over it and say something. She called this healing the water. After this, she would give you a drink of water. As she handed it to you, she would say, now drink. Take this and drink. Honey, I had some of that water myself, and believe me, it goes all over you and makes you feel so good. Old Aunt Dorcas would give you a supply of water, the holy water, and tell you to come back for more when that was gone. Old Aunt Dorcas said the Lord gave her power and vision, and she used to fast for a week at a time. You see that? So even the concept of holy water is not unique to other people's religions. We have it in Hoodoo as well. And we have it in Central African religion. And again, what's the difference between regular water and holy water? The priest blesses it. But if the priest could bless it, guess who else can bless it? Aunt Dorcas. And we believe her because we have a attestation of our ancestor who drank the water and gave their review. And we have Aunt Dorcas being blind, being able to go out into the woods and locate any root or herb that she wanted, even though she was blind. And she said that she was guided by the Lord. Okay? Guided by the Lord. Powerful. So there's even a concept of holy water. And so when you're talking about, even when you're talking about miracles in the Congo, the Portuguese attested to seeing someone who was pierced with 7 mortal wounds from arrows be entirely restored by the juice of certain well-known herbs. So we could already heal. We already had holy water. We already had items that could ward off evil. We already had a connection to the spiritual world. We already had holy writings and holy texts that came directly from holy men who went up to heaven and brought it back for us. And we already have stories of that holy man going around with an angel or a spiritual being teaching these truths. We have all of that. All of that. Now, mind you, look, check this out. In the Congo, they say, so that these people are not encumbered with many physicians for surgery, drugs, syrups, electuaries, plasters, and such like medicines, but simply heal and cure themselves with such natural plants as grow in their own country. So the kingdom of Congo was a powerful kingdom with hundreds of thousands, millions of subjects, and they ruled the European medicine, European doctors, or European forms of surgery. And they didn't need, for whatever it's worth, they didn't need the healing. They didn't need a priest to pray over them for them to be healed. Think about that. They didn't need to call on the name of Jesus to cast out evil spirits. They just didn't. They were casting out evil spirits on their own. They were fighting evil forces on their own. They were healing themselves on their own. They had their own doctors, their own physicians. And they used the plants that grew naturally in their own country to cure themselves. But it's interesting that they specifically point out that they didn't have a big need for doctors. Now look at the exact same terminology used in one of our slave narratives, aka oral histories. The ancestor says, oh, the peoples didn't never worry about no doctor then. They doctor was in the field in that in time. Where did they get this from? Central Africa. They said, talking about the Congo, so that these people are not encumbered with many physicians for surgery, drugs, syrups, electuaries, plasters, and such like medicines, but simply heal and cure themselves with such natural plants as grow in their own country. So when they came over here, they still didn't need any doctors. They just had to learn the natural lay of the land. So in the exact same phraseology, the ancestor says, oh, the peoples didn't never worry about no doctor then, the slaves. They doctor was in the field in that time. I'm going to tell you just like I know it. All the older peoples used to get their herbs out the fields for their remedies. And those older peoples were the ones who were brought directly from Africa before they had babies on the plantations. They say my massa and my missus was the ones what doctor mostly in them times. Used to get old field ringdom. What smells like this here mint. and boiled that and let it steep. That was good to sweat a fever and cold out you. Then there was life everlasting tea that was good for a bad cold, and cherry bark, what would make the blood so bitter, no fever never couldn't stand it. Them what had the rheumatism had to take that lion's tongue, or what some peoples call wintergreen tea. And some of the time they take pine top and mix with the herbs and make a complete cure. Oh, they make it bad as they could so as to weaken the case. Another thing that's been good for the rheumatism was that red oak bark that they used to bathe the limbs with. Now, I want y'all to think that, really think about this, family. Really think about this. Some things that grow in America are similar to what grows in Africa. Some things, not everything. How did the Africans captured in Africa and brought to America, how did they know what herbs and roots to use to heal themselves? Especially if some of these herbs and roots weren't in Africa. How did they know what to use? Now, in all transparency, some ways that they knew was interacting with the Native Americans. I'm not going to lie to you. Some information they got from the Native Americans, because there were Native Americans enslaved right alongside our ancestors. But also, look what they said in the Congo. They said that Mother Nature itself showed the people what to use to heal themselves. What did Aunt Dorcas say? The Lord told her what roots to get. The Lord told her. Nature showed her. That's how they knew, family. Through quote unquote what we may look at as supernatural means. That's how they knew. And from watching the animals. What are the animals eating? What are they not eating? You see? So the spirits of the ancestors in the spiritual realm taught our ancestors, and nature itself taught our ancestors, because again, everything is alive. Everything has the essence of the divine in it. Everything is alive. And the first step to tapping into the consciousness of the living planet, the living universe, is to accept that it's all alive. It's not dead. There's no such thing as dead matter. It don't exist. It don't exist. And so that's how our ancestors were able to adapt their spiritual practices on the slave plantations and create hoodoo. So again, this has been Central African origin of hoodoo, 10,000-year-old religion with unique holy book never seen. And I want to leave you guys with this, that according to the oral history of our ancestors, some 10,000 years ago, a holy man was taken up into heaven. While in heaven, he was given this religion. Now, this religion is unlike the known religions of today. This religion was centered on taking care of your country, taking care of your wife, taking care of your children, and it was a knowledge and understanding of our connection to the natural world, how to understand the natural world, use and manipulate the natural world to improve our conditions. Okay? How to interact with the natural world and use the natural world to heal ourselves and build our societies. That's African religion and spirituality. Now, we did have holy books, holy scriptures, holy texts, holy writings associated with this religion. And unfortunately, even in the Congo, these things were destroyed because one of the kings wanted to be a Catholic. So he destroyed the holy writings. He destroyed the so-called idols, and he replaced it with the holy writings, and the idols of the Catholics. So anybody that's interested, you can get this book, A Report of the Kingdom of Congo and of the surrounding countries. I own this book. That's my picture of the copy that I have. All of the pictures are from the book that I actually have. It's a lot more interesting inside of that. So I hope that gave you some more insight into Central African religion and how it translated over into Hoodoo. And I hope you now understand that our oral histories of our religion and our religious texts go back over 10,000 years. Okay. So again, this has been your brother Matthew Daniels, aka Pooh, aka the Chosen Few, aka the Real Bookworm. But I'm not just a bookworm world. I am the real bookworm. Make sure you get it right. I'm doing the book game like it ain't never been done before. And I'm doing the book game like it'll probably never be done again. Y'all support the channel if you like. Hit that cash up. Go to Amazon. Suicide Note by Matthew Daniels. Morning Motivation with Matthew Daniels. Buy Matthew Daniels, volume 1 through 12. Order one of my books. It's going to change your life. Thank you guys for watching. We've been over 2 hours. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. I hope you heard something that can change your life. May your name live on forever. And may your memory family, never die. Hotel, I'm out.